leadership role that was going to be supportive of their kids. Many of which, if they had multiple kids, this is the first time one of the kids had come out to them. They did not know how to support their kids themselves, and they were navigating those waters alone and needed some support. And so what I started was like a parent support group first. I wanted to hear the perspectives of parents and what kind of support they needed, and kind of went that route. That wasn't necessarily enough in that moment, because it was like, well, my child continues to get bullied. And so then we started to dive into the bullying policy and what that looked like. I remember going to the superintendent and say, there's some parents who have some concerns about our bullying policy, or rather like a lack of a bullying policy. And what can we do to change that? Within a week, he handed me a bullying policy. And I read over that bullying policy, and I had already done some research on it and had like a few ideas of what I thought would be an amazing bullying policy. But he presented something to me, and it had, I guess, many of the key terms and key wording that needed for that policy. But it really wasn't a policy that was going to change the behaviors of some of the kids in the schools. So I handed it back to him and said, like, I appreciate your willingness to do something. This is like a template you found from CSBA, and I get it, but our families deserve something better. So how could I help with this policy? And I gave him 3 copies of different policies that I had found on the internet that I thought would be effective in our district. And we end up taking it on the road a little bit, getting some input from families. And that did end up being the policy that was adopted. And for the first time, parents came to me and said, that's what we needed from a leader. And made me feel really good in the moment that like I was listening to our families, particularly families that are already underrepresented, don't know how to advocate for their kid who's trans, or their kid who just came out to them, or whatever their journey may be. And it made me realize that I needed to use my voice. That's why they put me there. And that maybe I could do something more. And so I started to do a little more. I'll fast forward back to the meeting at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. That same question was posed to me. And it was, you've put a policy together, you've helped these families, you've done this, you've done that, but is it enough? And in the moment I thought, of course it's enough. Like, we're seeing progress, we're doing more. But it was like, where do our kids, where our families, where our adults have to go at the end of the night, or at the, like, in a place that's safe and inclusive? And I asked myself that over and over. And there were not many places in the immediate community. And in fact, for many years, like because I had kids who were high school age and middle school age, kind of masked my own identity. Like, I don't need to flaunt my sexuality out there, because I don't want to draw attention to my kids and put them at risk of being bullied because their father's gay. And I kind of masked that myself. But now we were embarking on waters where I was able to listen to families, help create policies, and move it forward. But then the question became, that's what you're doing in the schools. What about everyone else? What about the people who are not in the schools? What about the young adults who are navigating their college careers? And so as we sat around that table, we had talked about creating a nonprofit. And I must say, we've had that conversation at least 10 times in the past 10 years. And it had just been a conversation. And so when we sat at that table and that question was posed, I asked, well, I said, well, we've been having this conversation for some time, and it never goes further than the conversation. So if you're interested in doing this, this is what I could do. And this is how I'm willing to support. And I asked that to some of the people at the table. What can you do? How are you willing to support? And so that day, at that table, on the napkin and some papers that they had on the backside, we kind of developed a little plan. So I was in charge of filing the paperwork with the IRS. I was in charge of doing the statement of information and paying the fees, and others were in charge of other things, like setting up first meetings, talking with the church about using some space and other things of that sort. And the next day, I got at it. I pulled the papers, filled them out, um, researched some different organizations in our area, and in Southern California region rather, and wanted to look at what their mission and visions were, and what kind of mission and vision we might need for, at that time, the Pomona Pride Center. And just put something pretty vague together, and submitted it. I had heard many times that the backlog at the IRS was very long, and that hopefully I'd hear from them by December. And I was pleasantly surprised 3 weeks later when we were granted nonprofit status. And so I hurried to the phone, called everyone who we had invited to be on the board, and said, let's have our first official meeting. So on the 11th of 7/11 of 2019, we had our first meeting. We elected officers. We made a motion to open a bank account and to start doing the work that we're doing. Never did I imagine we would grow at such a tremendous rate, and continue to grow as an organization. That was in July. The next month, we were tabling at the fair for the whole duration of the fair. And it just kind of kept falling on our laps. And if I'm being honest, it really never felt like work for me. I was still working my full-time job, but separate from that, I was doing all that I can. I was elected the president at that time, and have served as president until this past June, when my term expired, and I left last year I had the opportunity to serve as both the president of the organization, but also the executive officer. But to ensure that there weren't any conflicts, that I felt it was best that I serve as the chief executive officer rather than have that and the role of president, to really build capacity within the team, to grow as an organization, to begin to write a strategic plan. And so I would just say, within 6 months of being an organization, our neighbors came to us and said, we know you're the Pomona Pride Center, but what about us over here in Claremont? What about us in Verne? What about us in Chino? And it was like, we're just getting our feet wet, like, but we'll get there. But in February, we did elect to change our bylaws and our service area. So February of that year, although we remained the Pomona Pride Center, our service area now included Pomona Valley, the Pomona Valley region, which includes, like, in the San Bernardino portion of the service area, it's Chino Hills, Montclair, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and Upland. And in the Los Angeles County portion, it's Pomona, it's Verne, Claremont, San Dimas, Walnut, and Diamond Bar. And so since February of 2020, we've been serving the Pomona Valley region. Now, I will tell you that next year, we did tackle the challenge of, do we change our name? And it had been on the back of our minds since that February. But we wanted to be very intentional with how we did things. We didn't want to just be Pomona Valley Pride without being fully in the Pomona Valley region. Like, just because we have them listed as an area that we represent doesn't mean that we are getting into those cities and providing services like we were in Pomona. So let's prove to those cities, to that that we are fully invested in serving that community and those constituents. And so over the next few years, that's what we started to do. And of course, and right in the smack middle of that, we have the pandemic. And we think, okay, it's a setback for us. How do we handle this? We quickly learned as an organization that there was not a setback for us. That meant we had to take all of our programming online, which we had already done, most of our programming as a hybrid. But I'll tell you, during the pandemic is when we grew the most. We went from serving 1,200 people in year one to under 4,000 in year two, over 6,000 in year three. We just completed year four and have served over 12,000, and we're on target to serve about 14,000 this year. It's been challenging, I would say, because we have a board of 14, and when you have a board that big, there's a lot of different personalities, and not to mention that they're all gay or trans or part of the community, and they all have attitudes and they all want their own thing. But I'm trying to navigate those waters best I can to make everyone happy. But really, at the end of the day, it's about providing services and programs for our community that they could be proud of, that they could really embrace. And so we've been doing the work since then. I'll share that I'm happy from day one that we've been well received in the community, that we have not received any hate. And if I'm being completely transparent, the reason I was late to today's meeting is because today was the first day that there was some hate that came our way, that involved us contacting the local police department and doing things because there was a viable threat. And unfortunately, in this day and age, and what's going on across the nation, the safety of the employees and our program participants is a number one priority. And so today I had to deal with something I have never had to deal with before. And so it definitely was a rough day for me. So being here amongst individuals who I consider leaders in our community, who are like-minded, and I say that as a lifelong Democrat who has not missed an election since I turned 18, because it's my way of being able to contribute to my community in finding the right candidates and finding the right leaders to lead our cities and our organizations. And so while today was a rough day, it is, I feel like the better part of it is now in being able to speak and share about the organization, and an organization that is growing every day. So I will tell you that I guess where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. And so you've heard a little bit of the past of how we got here, and now in a year and a half ago, we entered into a space in downtown Pomona, off of Thomas and 4th Street, just behind the Fox Theater. And it's been an amazing opportunity. We see youth in our center every day. We've helped many individuals who are unhoused, who are just facing the roughest time in their life as they embark on their authenticity with their families, with their friends, and many times with nobody. And it's been an amazing journey. We did in July, we officially decided to change our name. We are now known as Pomona Valley Pride, and you'll begin to see that a lot more. And probably after October 7th, when we're hosting our 3rd annual gala, which we call gala, and so we will have an official reveal of our new logo, which really is a mosaic piece that was designed by a local artist with the new name, Pomona Valley Pride. We dropped the center and we dropped Pomona Pride Center, so we're now just Pomona Valley Pride. This afternoon, my board of directors and I met, and you will be literally the first to know that we will be moving locations. We are not going very far, but we are moving from a 1,684 square feet facility into a 7,500 square facility about 1,000 yards from where we're currently at. I guess I could say it's kind of been nostalgic in a sense where as we look at where we're going, I think about organizations like yours. I think about going into communities like yours and supporting items such as like the consideration of book bans and being able to go and advocate for students. Myself and some of the staff were there speaking against that, and we were very delighted with the outcome and the leadership that was exhibited by Bonita Unified School District. And we will continue to work to support and empower those students and that community in general. We've also had some setbacks like in Chino, where we have had to go and advocate for their students whose rights have been stripped from them. They cannot fly pride flags in their schools anymore as a teacher or anything of that sort. And we've been fortunate that the Attorney General has stepped in, and there's been a temporary halt to their outing their students, the policy that was approved last July. But through that work, I think we've shown to our community that we are dedicated to more than just Pomona. Now, I'll tell you, I'm a lifelong resident of Pomona. Pomona is my home, and I am very proud of that work. But when I took on the role as president of this organization and then as executive director, that role was to support and empower the Pomona Valley region. And I know in every direction of where we're currently situated, within a 40-mile radius, we are the only Pride Center. So if someone needs support, they have to go far for it. And that's why we elected to be here and to provide these services. I can tell you the services off the top of my head. We have, for our youth, we have what we call YALL, which is a youth activism lavender leadership, and it's a fellowship where we bring youth together as a council, so to speak, to plan and implement activities for our youth. We like our youth activities to be youth-led. Like, what do I know if I'm not a youth, what's important to youth today? And I can try and I can suggest, but at the end of the day, I'm no longer a youth. And so I don't want to tell them what it is they need to have as programs. So they've elected to have art classes on Sundays at the Dial Center for the Arts. Happens every Sunday. It's been happening for the past year and a half. And with the grants we've been able to obtain, we know they'll be happening for the next 3 years. We have Friends, Family, and Allies, which works on empowering not just the youth, but their family and friends who may need that support, who have never had to deal with an individual who's openly gay or just doesn't know how to react to that or doesn't know how to support. So we provide them an opportunity to share what they're experiencing and how we can support them so that they could be a supportive friend or family or ally to someone else. And we learned a lot from our youth. Many of the youth in our program, our Lavender Youth Alliance, are in that program because they're there supporting some of their friends. They're not there because they're queer or they're part of the queer community. They're there because they have a friend who wanted to join, but didn't want to do it alone because they do a lot of things alone already. And so they stepped up to support them. We have a youth group that meets every second Saturday. And currently we meet in Pomona, but one of the things that we're doing with intention as of this fiscal year is that our programming is in many instances at our site, but we're taking that programming on the road. We have various organizations that we partner with. There are some faith-based organizations that we work with to bring the programming to them. We will be having some conversations with the leadership at Bonita Unified to hope that we could host some of these meetings after school at their school sites as well. We are already in conversations with schools in Upland as well as Montclair because we're trying to build a coalition of organizations or communities to really come together to empower our youth. Annually, we have a Youth Empowerment Summit. And we bring students from as far away as Fontana and every one of our cities. We've done 2, and we are continuing um, to grow that program. But it was initially funded by Tri-City, and now it's funded through Elevate Youth California, where we have a little more flexibility and autonomy to grow that program with the associated funding. There was a question, have you connected with Chaffey Joint District? Funny that you asked, because I recently was on a telephone call with the principal, because this year our gala is being held at Ontario Convention Center. And historically, we've used schools from Pomona. Big surprise, right? So we're really making a concerted effort to let our community know that we are willing to go into your community and utilize your resources to help better educate and support all of our families and individuals in the area. So we have invited Chaffey High School to perform at our 3rd annual gala. And we are still in conversations with them to solidify that. One thing that we have to do when we have discussions of this sort and invite schools like that is be totally transparent with who we are as an organization, because there may be some families that don't want their child to do it, and we don't want them to come at us angrily after the fact. We're trying to be transparent up front, let the school know what it is we're doing, who we are as an organization, and why it's important to have talent from every one of our areas represented. And Ontario Montclair. So we do have a relationship with Ontario Montclair already, but we are working to build that. So we currently have a program with Pomona Unified School District, and that's the Lavender Youth Alliance, where we go in and we support students, about 130 students throughout the year, on academic planning, identity support grants, which is almost like a coming out plan. We provide educational field trips. We provide healthy movements, a healthy movements program where we do hikes and different things of that sort. So we have an array of programming that we already have. It started as a pilot program last year at Pomona Unified School District, and this year we are continuing that program. It is something that we hope to grow to other districts as well, but we are collecting data. We're collecting all the information so that when we go to the other, we're ready to really manage these programs that we're doing. Give me 1 second. The dogs are excited too. So just taking a quick break from that. I know I've bombarded everyone with a lot already, and so I will stop for a second, take a breather, and see if there's any questions that anyone wants to ask before I continue. And I see Isabel, your hand is up.
Hi, thank you, Frank. First, I just want to say I'm really impressed by your organization. I didn't realize y'all were so new. And so just the fact that you started in 2019 and have like trucked through these really tumultuous times, and your growth is really impressive. My question, we talked a little bit before you joined, and you mentioned when you were on the call about the book beginning efforts in Bonita. I was wondering if you could just shed some light on what your conversations have been like with the district, or what you're hoping to bring to Bonita Unified School District.
Absolutely. So first, I will say being connected with many individuals in the queer community. When that started, I was invited to join the Informed Readers meeting and just kind of be a voice for the queer community, and very easily I was able to accept that challenge, or rather just that endeavor, because it's really about what our mission and vision is exactly. And so I didn't even think about it in the moment, but of course, I had a very minimal relationship with Matt and with the superintendent, who wasn't the superintendent at the time while I was on the board, and we served on a joint board that Pomona and Bonita both serve on. And so there was a little familiarity with those individuals. And so it kind of felt like, not that I was like knew everyone so well, but welcomed openly by the community to advocate for that community. And so I was able to have conversations with the superintendent, with the Informed Readers group, and then really with some students who were present after being impressed with some of their speeches and just hearing some of their stories. And it was, unfortunately, it was around the same time as the Chino thing, so I was going from one district to the next. And so the conversations are around what we can do to support students in Bonita Unified. I will tell you, our first year, students from Bonita Unified came to our programming every week, who were leaders of the GSA at Bonita High School. And so we were supporting individual students from the area already, but it really felt like we were doing very minimal work. And so unfortunately, through this book ban efforts, I felt like this is our way to let that community know that we're here to support them. And it all came around the same time as we're transitioning to new names. We're transitioning with new logos to be more inclusive to our communities that we serve. And now the conversations are around what we can do to provide some support to those students. Like, I don't want to just jump in just because it's an opportunity for us. I want it to be something that we could help bridge, whether it's through like a friends, family, and allies support group, which we have already twice a month, but maybe we start transitioning one to another area. Maybe we rotate on a regular basis so that we give opportunity to those families to really engage in meaningful conversation with other parents who have gone through the same thing on how they can support their kids. Because once we start normalizing this behavior, I feel like the parents feel more empowered to stop a conversation that they may hear that sounds inappropriate, or just provide some insight on how it's okay to support your child who's going through this rough time. One of the things that I've learned is that sometimes when kids are coming out and they're sharing this, because it's a shock to some parents, that they don't know how to support their child. And they don't realize that they haven't, since that time, they haven't given their child a hug and said, I love you. And that's the one thing that I learned at the parent support group meetings. So when we were having these conversations, the question I asked was like, well, since your child came out to you, when did you tell them you love them? When didn't you give them an embrace to just say, you know, no matter what, I'm going to be here every step of the way? And I ask that question almost at everyone when I have a new parent who's going through that journey. And I would say 95% of the time, they can't even remember the last time they did that. So I was like, imagine how powerful it is that despite what you're going through right now, you just give that hug and say, I love you. We're going to get through this together. It's going to be a little bit of a journey because I need to accept the fact that my daughter is now my son, or wants to transition to that. And I may have been planning my child's wedding the whole 18 years that they've been growing up. And I say that as a parent. I have two kids who have grown up, and parents have plans for their kids and want the best for them. And this throws a wrench into that parent's way of thinking, or at least what they had planned for their child. But it doesn't have to. And so sometimes having those conversations just alleviates that whole thing, that you're no longer in control of what's going on in your child's life. Many parents tell me, or have said to me, your relationship with your kids is too close. And in the beginning, I started to think like, maybe I do have a too close a relationship with my kids, but I've always wanted to foster a relationship where they can come to me with anything. And even like I said, if it's something that's bad, chances are I'm not going to be happy, but I'm going to be glad you told me. And as a result, like when my kids have experience when they're in college, like when they come home, I'm like, what's going on out in college? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? But they've shared that they may experience a drug or things of that sort. And in the moment, it was disappointing to me. It was disappointing because I grew up with two parents who were drug addicts. And so my whole life, I've been afraid of even experimenting or trying a drug, because if I'm anything like any of my parents, I'm going to end up on drugs on the streets and dead at a very young age. And so hearing that was disappointing to me. But knowing that my kids trust me enough to share that is kind of a little reassurance. And so, like, what did you learn from that? Is that something you still do? And having those conversations is important. And it's also conversations sometimes could be sexual in nature. Like if you're having sex, are you having protected sex? Is this like one of the things that I always tell my kids is like character is what's doing right when no one is watching. And so like my child is going to a music festival this weekend and she left this evening. And it was like, don't forget, no one's watching, but it's all about what you have inside. And they look at me and like, we get it, Dad, but it's just something because there's not, I hope that if they ever attempted to do something, that in that moment that they think, okay, I know my father said, and we move on and move past it. But I say that because that's been a lot of what's been told in today's day. When I'm going to Chino, it's a parent notification because parents should know what's going on in their child's life. As an active parent who's been involved in my child's life from the very beginning, my goal is always to have been to look out for the best interests of them. But I just really ponder and think like, has there ever been a time where I felt like I needed the school to notify me? I could tell you one parent teacher conference, I noticed my signature was forged in the parent teacher conference. I was like, when did this come out? And my son turned over and I was just like, I knew that just in that moment. So I think as parents, if you have that relationship with your child, like you don't have to worry about being notified. You will notice those things immediately. And if you don't, that's the question you need to be focused on and how you can get there with your child. So I'll hope I answered your question. I feel like I went a little bit further on. I see another hand up, David.
Hi, Frank. Thank you so much for the work you do. It couldn't be more important in this country right now than what you're doing. My question has to do with, do you have an estimate about how many people you serve over the course of, say, a year, including families and extended families?
Yeah. So this year we're right now based off the numbers because when you come in, you sign in on a laptop. And if that goes down, we use paper, but we track everyone who comes in. We are on track to serve about 14,000 individuals this year. Last year, it was about 12,000. In the previous year, it was 6,000. We had our biggest jump when we moved into our physical location. And then I wanted to share the previous question about growth because I'm all about transparency. I'm all about growing programs, and we have grown. It has been at a very rapid speed, and I have had to this year decline some opportunities because I have to build capacity within the team that I have to be able to fulfill the requirements that we have. So we went from year one being a $5,000 organization to year two being about 23,000. Year three, we were at 275,000. Last year, year four, we finished at 608,000, and we're on target to be at 1.5 million this year. So it's scary. I went from having 2 staff members to 3 staff members, and then all of a sudden we're at 10. But what's not scary is that the people coming in need supports, and having a very diverse staff to just jump in and provide that. My office is like downstairs, literally right next to the community center. So I get to hear every conversation, and hearing the wealth of knowledge that my staff comes with and is able to address these issues, like many times brings me to tears because I want to go interject and like, oh, let me add my piece. But by the time I get there, it's like, it's already done, but that's what it's supposed to be. Having been here from the beginning with this organization has been very humbling to me, and having seen the growth and seen that the community receives us well is very important. Matt.
So you just mentioned your funding. Is your current funding stable and predictable? How can we as individuals or a collective group help and support the Pomona Valley Pride?
So I would say about 75% of our funding is grant funded, and 25% of it is more fluid and doesn't come with strings attached where we have to deliver something specific. So some of the things that we offer are like a gender neutral closet, a food pantry, book library, and hygiene kits. Those are items that are not funded by any one of our grants. And those are the most popular amenities that we offer. Every day, at least a dozen people come in for clothing, for hygiene kits. Families come in for food on a regular basis. And these are not items that are part of our budget. So you could help one of two ways. You could, of course, donate to the Pomona Pride Center. And if you can't donate like cash or money to the organization, like you could do it in other ways. You could do it in, if you have canned goods in your pantry that you know you're not going to use. If you have extra hygiene products. So whenever I go out to hotels, I bring my own shampoo and soap, but I take the shampoo and soap there because we put it into our food pantry in our hygiene kits so that we are able to give that to others. I'm one of those people who's not afraid to ask. I feel like I'm very well connected. And so if I know someone who works at a hotel, I'm like, I'm going to need 100 soaps and shampoo if you have them. And 90% of the time they hand it over. And we're able to make our hygiene kits and different things of that sort. We are launching a binder program. Well, we will be providing binders and care and use on binders for youth who are considering transitioning. That's one of the steps that they may choose to consider, and we're making sure that we fund that in a way where it's not just giving the binder, but really giving the education on that binder, how to care and use for it, because if you don't know how to do that, it can be detrimental to your health. So those are areas of which support is always welcome. I would say, and if those are areas that are not good for you, we are always accepting volunteers because we have an array of work that can be done. And if you're like a professional in your field, we could always use guest speakers for our youth activism Lavender Leadership Program, because we want to teach our youth how that there could be successful queer individuals, there could be successful individuals who are open and allies and different things of that sort. Karen.
Hi. Is the Foothill AIDS Project still a going organization, and do you have any relationship with them at all?
Yes, Foothill AIDS Project is still a thriving organization, been around for 35 years. They happen to be the organization of the year that we are honoring at our gala. Their new CEO, LaMonica, who's been with the organization for a while, is doing some amazing things. We did enter an MOU with them recently. We've been partnering with them in sending some of our participants there who need some of those resources. And so we have a great working relationship with them and look forward to continuing that relationship.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly talk about some of our other programming. I know I mentioned a few. So I talked about our youth group, our y'all, our friends and family, and art classes. We also have a gamer night. So we every fourth Saturday we have gamer night. It's just a fun time. Sometimes we're on Nintendo Switch or PS4, and sometimes we're doing board games and hula hoop in our parking lot, so to speak. We have a youth mentorship program in collaboration with Western University. This program, I want to really highlight it because I feel like not enough youth take advantage of it. But we have second-year doctoral students who lead this program. Every one of the mentors is from Western U, is about 2 years out from being a doctor or going into the residency. Students who elect to participate in this program are sent like an Instagram link where they're able to go and read about each of the mentors who are on this list and choose someone who maybe closely identifies with them or has had similar life experiences. some of the things that we do at the center. Every Wednesday, we have a vaccine clinic. So you can go get monkeypox, flu shots, COVID, and various other vaccines. So no insurance is required. If you have it, they'll take it. But if you don't, we're not going to turn anyone away. We're going to make sure you have access to those vaccines. At the same token, if you know families who are experiencing a hard time, if they have to apply for medical, CalFresh, or cash aid services, we're able to sign them up at the Pomona Pride Center. We have a contract with the Department of Social Services to do so. And so, like many times, once a week, we're at the Department of Social Services handing out flyers in the line because people are standing in line to apply for those services, and there's no line at the Pomona Valley Pride. So we encourage them to come take advantage of that there. Beyond the binary happens on the first and third Wednesday of every month. We tackle different binaries and really talk about when it started and why it's important and what kind of individuals identify as part of that program. Some of our grants are around substance use abuse prevention and awareness. So we have a CARE program where we talk about the different drugs and what it means and what it can do to you as an individual if you were taking these types of drugs. We have one of our longest standing programs is a fun one, Coffee and Pooches at the Park. And so we literally every first and third Saturday, we're at various dog parks throughout our area. And it's really just a time to just come and network with people and let your dogs run around. We bring coffee and donuts and little giveaways like the handheld flags of different genders and sexualities. And really, it's just a good time. And so we were in San Dimas last month. I believe we're scheduled to be in Laverne in November. So hopefully look out for that and join us when you have an opportunity. It's really just a fun time. Every quarter, we have a community training series. So we talk about like pronouns and the importance of pronouns, or the history of LGBTQ, our allyship and what that means. And so every quarter we host a class in somewhere in our service area, and we are likely going to transition that to every month. Starting in January, we'll be able to host a community training series in a different city every month. We have healthy movements on the first and third Saturdays at 10:30 to 12. The first Saturday of the month, it's around cooking and healthy living. And then the third one, it's around healthy movements, getting out, maybe doing Zumba, going on a hike, doing something of that sort, just staying active. Every first and third Wednesday, we have what we call Vintage Pride. It's our senior group. They get together. We have a community walk. We walk around different neighborhoods. So we meet at different locations and we just take a stroll and talk about various things. It's really just providing a space for our senior community to just come together and have a good time. The first Wednesday, we also have a planning group of seniors. So we plan trips to like musicals or little festivals and just really planning a time to go have a good time and to just build community with one another. The Night Owl Initiative happens every quarter. This is for individuals who are interested in nightlife. So this is young adults who are out drinking and potentially engaging in drug activity. So we have Narcan that we provide, test strips. So if you're going to do drugs, you know what, make a safe decision and test your drugs before you take it. And so really just empowering them to take ownership of their lives and really make smart decisions. We have professional networking. I want to say last month we were at Micocina in Laverne, in downtown Laverne. And we had a nice turnout. So we had some elected officials from neighboring cities come join us. I think we had Eric Nakano from San Dimas and Ed Reese from Claremont. And so really just trying to build that network of people. We have UndocuQueer for our undocumented friends and families who need a safe space to gather and do things. And I think in our zine workshop. So we launched this year a zine. So every quarter we put a zine together of local arts, poems, and different forms of art expression. And we put it in a zine which is a mini magazine. I'm still learning myself. That's the youth part of it. That's why we shouldn't be creating youth programs, because I'm like, aren't we just creating a magazine? Like, no, it's not a magazine. It's a zine. And so those are like our programs in a nutshell. We continue to grow as an organization. We just got a $250,000 grant to do some. I don't want to say faith-based, but it is a faith-based programming where we have a faith-based group that comes together. So we bring various different faiths together and are doing like mindful meditation, sky breathing, yoga in the park, things of that sort, to just really help people take care of themselves. And whatever that looks like. We provide journals and agendas so people can take charge of their lives and make healthy decisions. That is that's actually all of our programming. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm forgetting before I open it up for questions again. So I know I said a lot, but I will say I feel very fortunate to do the work I do. I get to work every day about 8 a.m. and I usually get home around the same time, because it does not feel like work to me. It really feels like I'm living my life's purpose of supporting families and youth who don't have that supportive family. And I say that as someone who unfortunately did not have that supportive family. And so I do it as a part of me feels that it's my therapy. That makes me feel like I'm contributing to others in a way that I wish someone had contributed to me when I was young. David, were you raising your hand?
No, I wasn't, but thank you so much, Frank.
No problem.
Frank, I do have a quick question. Do both of our high schools have a student club on their respective campuses that support the LGBTQ community?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So literally that's the work I do in a nutshell. And as I mentioned, it's work that I love. But I don't do this work alone. I wish I could say, actually, I don't wish I could say I did, because that would be a lot of work. I have an amazing team. I have an amazing board of directors. And while we sometimes have differences in opinions, at the end of the day, it comes back to what's best for our community. And if we take that approach, it usually works in our favor. And so I want to just acknowledge that I don't do this work alone. I rely heavily on the board, heavily on the staff, and really heavily on the community who come in and provide insight, provide knowledge that maybe I didn't have. And so I welcome your opinions, your voices, your comments on things that we can do to partner together. Like if there are organizations in your community that we're not aware of, introduce us to those organizations. We want to support them. We do go out and do presentations on like pronouns, on we have an array of different trainings that we offer that we provide to the community at no charge. So if you know any organizations that might be struggling with maybe there's a transgender individual who's coming to the workplace and they haven't had to deal with in the past, and it's hard getting accustomed to the what were considered the norms. So when you see someone who may have some facial hair, you automatically assume that they go by he, him pronouns, but maybe they don't. And it's hard to get accustomed to that. We provide exercises and trainings on how to support that. And so if any of you all need that support, I see a Citrus College background. We were there yesterday, tabling at the Pride Center. We were very happy that you guys have someone staffing a Pride Center. I believe we actually met the president of the school while we were visiting. So it was just a warm welcome. And so it's always great to have that welcoming. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's nice to see that what you're doing with the younger students that can transition. And I think most community colleges, and I would say colleges, are working in this arena. But we are trying to make our campus a very welcoming place. Just this graduation, we had our first lavender graduation, and it was just one of the most joyous events we've ever had.
Awesome. This past year, we actually hosted our first lavender graduation as well. And our lavender graduation is open to any graduates, either in the K-12, community colleges. We had a doctoral student this year because we really want to showcase that education goes beyond K-12 and that there are successful people in every level. And so we always welcome. So next May, if you know anyone graduating, whether they are from high school, college, or with a master's or doctorate degree, we welcome them to come join us and celebrate and showcase the successes in our community. We also host an annual queer prom because sometimes the queer community feel like they don't belong at the typical queer prom, or that they can't go as their authentic self, or however they're expressing themselves. And so we do host an annual queer prom. This past year, we had about 100 students attend. And it's literally just a fun, supervised time where they basically, everything that takes place at a prom, we have dinner, we have dance, we have what are the spinning cameras, 360 cameras and things like that, where students just come make memories and feel supported. They get just seeing their faces and seeing them being in their authentic self is amazing. I will tell you, like I never imagined I would be doing this work. But now that I'm here, I can't imagine doing anything else.
And Frank, you had mentioned that we were, I guess, literally the first folks to find out of your new move. When are you moving into your bigger space, approximately?
So I'll be signing the lease tomorrow, and we will do some renovations in the building. We will likely open December 1st at the new location.
Okay.
At the latest, it will be January 1st. But what you will see at our gala is that we are showing the changes in our brand from where we were, where we currently are, and where we're going in the future. We will talk about our current location and how we have outgrown that space. We've actually been, we literally do not have the capacity to house our full staff there without being kind of cramped. And so we will make that really official. Like when I say, the only people who know are my board members, but they know that it is important that our community knows. And so we're not hiding it. We just, so our new name change has already been out there. We did a press release on that. And we will use both names interchangeably, probably throughout the year. As of October 7th, that's when you'll begin to see a new logo. You'll begin to see all of our social media platforms will have a new name. It won't say Pomona Pride Center anymore. It still says that now, but October 7th is the day that we will begin to transition all of that there. And so people will still refer to us as Pomona Pride Center, and we will still, let's say, they take the checks that say that name on it, but as of January 1st, like we will no longer use the Pomona Pride Center name and will effectively be the Pomona Valley Pride.
And so October 7th is the day of the gala.
Yes.
And remind me, where are tickets available? How can anyone from this group attend and support if possible?
So visit PomonaPrideCenter.org/gala, GAYLA. And when you go there, you can buy a ticket individually. You can do sponsorship opportunities. You could do an ad for the Pomona Democratic Council. Those are the various opportunities. This year, our gala is being held at the Ontario Convention Center. We have secured Shakina Nafak, who is a trans actress, who will be our MC. We have secured like Femboy, a performing group at a Riverside Community College to do some interpretive dancing. We have, what else do we have? We'll have a drag show, of course. We will have Dorian Wood as a performer. There will be some surprise things taking place there. We have not secured. We are still negotiating with our guest speaker, but there may be a big name coming to us. I would say a powerful lawyer who has done some work with the queer community as a guest speaker as well. And so we are excited. It is an amazing time. We have historically had like Mariachis Arcoiris, which is like the world's largest LGBT mariachi group. We've historically had like burlesque dancers. This is the first year we're straying from some of those forms of entertainment just because we're trying to really mix it up and not have the same thing going on year after year. So we hope you will join us. I guarantee you will have an amazing time. Our decorations are amazing. Our 3-course meal will surely fill your stomach. If you go, I would say if you're a drinker, open bar from 6:30 to 8. After that, you're on your own. We want to make sure you get home safe. So we're only going to pay for a little bit. But if you're buying a ticket, really you're paying, but we're going to help make sure that you enjoy your time. And so I encourage you to consider joining us. It's going to be an amazing event, and I look forward to having you there.
Well, Frank, thank you so much. When we talked about this before the meeting, my goal was really enabling this membership to get better acquainted with the Pomona Valley Pride Center, and you've done just that. And it is my hope that through that awareness, we can further amplify your message and your reach to the communities that we serve, San Dimas and Laverne. With that said, I want to offer you congratulations on your significant growth over the years. You were also recently recognized by the Claremont Chamber of Commerce as the Nonprofit of the Year. As you expand your footprint of services, can we expect similar membership of the group in Laverne and San Dimas chambers? Love to see more of you locally. I know that requires people power, but I hope to see you in those forums if at all possible.
Yes, so I'll start by saying we are fully staffed now, at least for the moment, with a staff of 10. The cities that we represent have been divided amongst the team. So San Dimas, Laverne each have a representative from my staff who you'll start seeing at city council meetings and different meetings as those who will work with your chambers. If we are not a member yet, I will tell you by the end of this year, we will be. We started, of course, being a member of Pomona Chamber of Commerce. We are now members at least 5 chambers, not San Dimas yet or Laverne, but we will be there. I've encouraged my staff not just to go and represent the city, but like if there's a service club in that city that you could join to really, at the end of the day, I don't just want to be the person asking for stuff. I want us to make service part of our everyday lives as an organization. And how we do that is like we don't just ask, but we also contribute. And so maybe you might see an application from me or someone on my staff to join this club because these are the eyes and ears in the city that give us an opportunity to learn a little bit more and to know where the need is for us. And so you will begin to see that. If you don't, send me a message because that means someone's slacking on their job. They do provide me their calendars, and they usually I ask them to send me an invite so that I can go with them if I'm available as well, at least the first few times. But yes, you will see a greater presence of us in your cities.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, again, Frank, thank you so much for making yourself available. I'm sorry you had a difficult earlier part of today, but I hope you ended it on a high note with us. We will be, as most people heard, we are recording this, and we hope to make it available for our members who were not able to join us tonight so that they can enjoy it anytime, anywhere at their convenience. So with that, we'll adjourn the speakers program and transition to our business part of the meeting. So for those who don't want to be part of the more boring part of the meeting, feel free to disengage and leave. But I will officially call the business part of the meeting to order at 8:26.
Guys, have a great day. Thank you.
Take care.